We have some major Sacramento Kings trade updates, the biggest of which revolving around Keegan Murray. As we all know, Monte McNair has been active in the trade market, trying to improve this roster, not just in trades, with signings, with any moves that he could try to make around the edges to build around this team. But obviously, in a recent video, we discussed some forwards that the Kings have been targeting, specifically Kyle Kuzma, different guys on that list, and we do have some more updates out there on that front. But the biggest question is, what would the Kings have to give up? Because I don't think many Kings fans are keen on giving up a ton of future first-round draft capital, and don't obviously want to give up win-now players to acquire win-now players. It doesn't make a ton of sense. So one name where there's been a polarizing split amongst the fan base, and in my opinion, probably is too early to be jumping the gun on this, but has been Keegan Murray. Because reading our comment section, looking through Kings Reddit, talking to friends, people have been discussing Keegan Murray as a trade possibility and saying, hey, yes, he has a ton of potential. Yes, he's improved in the defensive end. Yes, he's playing out of position right now. And he's getting a ton of rebounds. He's doing different things. But the lack of consistent jump shooting, the falling off a cliff, out there as a jump shooter has been something that people are disenchanted with and made them, pretty disappointed in this season so far for Keegan Murray and saying, hey, we got to trade him before he loses all his value, before teams start looking at him as this and this passive sort of role player and stuff. Well, I think personally, I'm saying it from the jump, it's too early to jump the gun on a Keegan Murray trade, but we now have some insight in terms of how the front office views Keegan Murray. So lots of stuff to break down in this video. But folks, once again, if you guys are part of the 83% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button and you want to stay up to date with everything regarding the Sacramento Kings, hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all the game reactions, the news, everything that's going on with this Sacramento Kings team. Because frankly, it's going to be a crazy, crazy trade season right now. Tons of reports, tons of stuff is dropping all around the NBA that attaches themselves to the Sacramento Kings. So we'll see what Monte McNair is going to be able to do. But let's dive into all these reports, all these discussions, what's happening with the squad right now. As we all know, and this is a new report regarding Kyle Kuzma, but the Kings are trying to get a new forward. And essentially, believe it or not, this is coming from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points. Kuzma actually holds a strong market as a secondary player who is proven to be able to lead his team's offensive attack at times. The Warriors, the Trailblazers, the Sacramento Kings, the Indiana Pacers, and the Detroit Pistons have all been linked to Kyle Kuzma recently. So another report attaching the Kings to Kyle Kuzma, as we broke down yesterday. The Kings have inquired about three of the top wings, Cam Johnson, Kyle Kuzma, Dorian Finney-Smith. Sacramento, one of the more active teams, have been dangling Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles in various exploratory trade talks to land an impact player. And so this isn't crazy big news. We know the Kings have been interested in acquiring Kyle Kuzma. Broke that down in yesterday's video. You want more of a deep dive on that? Definitely check out that vid. But as that sort of first report kind of indicated, there is a strong market for Kyle Kuzma, despite the fact he has been struggling, statistically this season, only averaging 16 points per game, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, shooting 28% from the three-point line, and only 30% on corner three. So he has not been good. He has not been good to his own standards, Kyle Kuzma, this season. He's 29 years old, so he's still not a young player by any stretch of the imagination, but not over the hill. He has a lot of really strong years left, and his contract situation is still very a positive one. If we take a look in terms of his salary, right now it's a contract that actually goes down over time, which is a positive. So you have him under locks for the next 3 seasons if you acquire him here right now. So Kuzma still has some value, and the real reason he actually has some value, more, an interesting sort of intriguing prospects as a player, because just last season he was averaging 22 points per game and shooting a lot better percentage from the three-point line, all stuff that we discussed in a recent vid. But as that report said, there is a decent market there for Kyle Kuzma, even with his struggles over the course of this year. He's dealt with some injuries as well, so that's going to factor into all of this and everything that's going on. But does that mean that the Kings would have to attach either first-round draft capital or Keegan Murray to one of these deals? Well, are they dangling Keegan Murray and they don't want to say anything? Well, there's a report that's come out that essentially indicates the otherwise, as Evan Serdy has come out and said that Keegan Murray remains a player the Kings are not comfortable putting on the table in trade talks. Sacramento, who refused to put Murray in trade negotiations with the Utah Jazz for Lauri Markkanen last season, continues to view Murray as a key core piece for the future. Now, of course, bringing Lauri Markkanen for Keegan Murray, that feels like a little, given the performance of Keegan Murray over the course of the season, feels a little bit crazy because he's 24 years old, averaging 13 points per game, or 12.5 points per game, 8 rebounds. The rebounds have been a significant improvement, but the real disappointing perspective on Keegan Murray's game right now is the under 30% shooting from behind the three-point line and only 36% on corner threes. For a 3-and-D guy, he just hasn't been as consistent as Kings fans have been hoping to really be a knockdown shooter, really be, a top-tier guy for this Kings team. But again, he's still super young. He's shown a ton of potential in the past as a guy that can actually put up solid types of numbers, right? Just last season was averaging 15 points per game, even though the three-point percentage did take a step back, right? Was shooting 41% from the three-point line his rookie year, and the three-point shooting has been going down and down and down over the course of his Kings career. He still has a ton of potential. He still has a ton of stuff, even with the shooting side of things, right? Because again, you can see this is the scoring, right? This is his shooting splits. On corner threes, that number is at 36. Even last year shot 33% out there. So it's not just a blip of the radar. It's not just a funk here now at this point. It is something that's concerning that Kings fans are desperately hoping that it's something that he can figure out. He's not creating any of his three-point shots. He hasn't made a three-pointer this season. Hasn't been assisted upon. So as a spot-up 3-and-D guy, those percentages just have to be better out there on the wings. But we all know Keegan Murray has some upside, right? The Kings still have him under contract for the next this season as well as the next couple. So again, usually rookie extensions come into play at the end of this upcoming season. So this is when the Kings would have to expect to make a decision on his long-term future with the team. But of course, they don't want to give up that early, which makes a ton of sense to me. Trading away Keegan Murray in a package for a Kyle Kuzma, for a Cam Johnson, for one of these dudes just seems like absolute overkill, and especially for a Kyle Kuzma, who he himself has been struggling out there from behind the three-point line over the course of the season. It does not make sense for this team right now. And a big issue with the Kings right now has been defense, right? The ability to guard out there on the wings. Of course, three-point shooting is something serious, and we see it game by game. When Keegan Murray, when Kevin Huerter are able to knock down threes, the Kings generally have a good shot at winning that game, no matter who they're facing up against, because they have such elite top-level talent. So you replace those two guys, or in theory, versions of themselves that just shoot higher percentages from the three-point line, then the Kings are going to win a ton more games. So I get why the Kings are making this push, trying to fix the roster and do something out there like this, but trading away Keegan Murray for a guy like Kyle Kuzma, for a guy like Cam Johnson, that in theory could be a better scorer, and Kuzma hasn't even been a better three-point shooter than Keegan Murray this season. It doesn't make a ton of sense. Now, there's one trade proposal I've seen going around Kingsland that, Jake Weinbach, he doesn't have like insider sources, he pretend he does, but he does make some interesting hypotheticals that gets fans riled up. And essentially, a trade idea between the Kings and the Wizards is Sacramento acquiring Kyle Kuzma and the Washington Wizards receiving Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, a 2027 first-round pick, and maybe some second-round pick draft compensation. Now, again, this player-wise doesn't seem like a crazy, insane haul. Kevin Huerter has not been great this season. He's been better in the last 5 games, but it's Trey Lyles, who has dealt with some injuries, can be an impact player, would lose the Kings some front court depth, but with the emergence of Jones here now, maybe that's something that you don't have to stress about too much. But the biggest concern of this one is a 2027 first round pick. Now, if you have lottery protections on that, if you have some significant protections on that because we don't know the direction of this team over the next couple seasons, then maybe that's something I'm way more comfortable with, because Kyle Kuzma, we saw it just last season averaging 22 points per game, could be a pretty valuable high upside guy. But of course, him not knocking down his threes right now, we all know Kings shooting percentages rarely go up when you join Sacramento. It is a bit of a concern, so giving up a future first-round pick is a bit more concerning. However, that 2027 first-round pick, and this might come I might come to eat my words in the future, but I'd rather have Keegan Murray here right now, even with the highs and lows, the roller coaster of his shooting percentages, the roller coaster of his game-by-game stuff. I'd rather have Keegan Murray than a first-round pick, and essentially with the market being pretty hot now for Kyle Kuzma, the Kings would probably have to give up some first-round draft pick compensation in order to bring Kuzma into the team, even with how bad he's been this year. So buy low, sell high. That's my whole philosophy, my whole approach out there on how I evaluate trades. I don't like it when when you're selling low on a guy, and that's what the Kings would be doing with dealing away Keegan Murray here right now. Now, again, if you don't project him to get better, if you don't project him to bounce back, then that's kind of the reality of stuff. And you could make the same argument maybe for Kevin Huerter, but the Kings are in a pretty dire spot right now in terms of how tough the schedule is about to get and how this team needs to sort of weasel their way back into the middle of this Western Conference playoff picture. They have been doing better as of late, 1-4 their last 5, but really it's going to need to be consistent shooting out here on the wings for Sacramento to really get back into the mix. So Let me know what you guys think about all this discussions. Are you happy that Keegan Murray is being kept off the table ahead of this year's trade deadline? Let me know in the comment section down below. Again, if you guys haven't hit the subscribe button just yet, part of the 83%, make sure you guys hit that sub button. Anyways, I'm signing out.